Live. Good evening, one and all. Namaskar. I am Bhavana Kashyap, a volunteer of Disha Bharat. Agnana Timirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The darkness of ignorance is all pervasive today. And this darkness is in our opinions, is in our thoughts and actions. And this darkness of ignorance can only be cleared by the light of knowledge. The knowledge which is considered as light in our tradition is the light which navigates to us to our goals. And it is with this same intention that Disha Bharat was founded in the year 2005 to steer all the youth of today to the goals. But the means is as important as the goals. And the right means with the foundation of values with an understanding of ourself, our country and our culture is the intention of all the program which nurtures the ethics, the morals, and all the character in today's youth, and Disha is helping build a value-based, harmonious society for this country, our great country, Bharat. Warm welcome to one and all for this fifth day of the 15 days lecture series, as a part of the MyBHARAT online series lecture, as the part of the MyBHARAT campaign. Our esteemed guest today is Shri Sahil Agarwal. Sahil Agarwal is a social entrepreneur and an educationist. He is the co-founder and CEO of Rishihood University. He has served as the co-chairman of the National Education Committee at the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and as a member of the National Committee of Design at the Confederation of Indian Industries, or CII. He is the trustee and board member at the Gateway Education, Sonipat. Sahil has a BTech from IIT Delhi and an MA in diplomacy. He also has been a visiting scholar for urban governance at Indiana University, Bloomington, USA. He has co-authored a book on public policy and co-designed a card game on politics and keeps writing for national dailies. I would like to welcome our guest. A warm welcome to you, Sahil ji, and request him to share his views on the topic, Knowledge Republic, Bharat's Civilizational Dreams. The stage is yours. We are waiting to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Bhavna ji. Namaste, everyone. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with all of you, and especially delighted to know that Disha Bharat has organized this 15-day series in the build-up to our Independence Day. And we are living in a very important time for our nation. 75 years of independence. There is a young fervor. We are seeing a civilizational reawakening. So it's pertinent to think that what should be our collective civilizational dream? What should we aspire for as a civilization? Because we have been there for millennia and we would like to be there for millennia. So what do we want to be? So my suggestion is that we should aspire to become a knowledge republic. And in this talk, I'll share what I mean by that. And then I'll be very happy to take some questions and suggestions from all of you. So where are we right now? A few months ago, we had hosted a lecture by an Indian American. He was visiting from Boston at our university, at Rishihood University. We hosted him for a lecture, and he made a comment that for the last 4 decades, he has been hearing that India is at a crossroads. So he said that till when will we continue to be on crossroads, and why cannot we move? So there have been choices in front of us, but we must move. So why is it that still after 75 years of independence, we feel that we have been on a crossroad for such a long time? I think we started after our independence, we started on a weak footing. There is truth in this statement that we have been on a crossroad for a long time. So once India got its freedom, maybe there was no higher ideal that captured our national imagination. Now we are free. What next? Because till the time we were a colony, we had this collective dream of getting free. But what after that? And that put us on a weak start. So we were a weak economy. There were resource constraints. We were a weak polity because we were new and there were unstable governments, and we had weak institutions and businesses, and therefore slow growth for a long time after our independence. And this has been the situation for quite a few generations now. So naturally, there is a feeling of dejection that we have not done what we were supposed to do. But I think now is the time to really make a choice at that crossroad. So it's difficult to set our priorities, in order, leave alone giving a unifying direction to a country. There's so many competing priorities when it comes to resource allocation, human resource planning, policy planning, so many things. But eventually, India has come out of that kind of a trap and has expressed itself globally as a leading nation. So now is the time. There has not been a better time to make a choice at that crossroads and chart out our nationhood. In this nationhood, I argue that we should choose knowledge as a civilizational dream. And what do I mean here by knowledge? So by knowledge, I mean three things. First is our collective desire as a civilization, as people of a civilization, our desire to learn and apply that learning. So that desire has to be there, which is a part of knowledge. Second is our collective ability to learn and create systems of learning. So we should have not only the desire, but that ability to learn and also create systems which facilitate learning, which includes our educational institutions, which includes platforms like Disha Bharat. And third, our collective know-how that we have gathered as a civilization over millennia, that also constitutes part of knowledge. So when we have these, why do I argue that it is the time to think of being a knowledge republic? And what do I mean by knowledge republic? How do we become a knowledge republic? I present this in a threefold fashion. The first thing is the most obvious in front of us, that at least for the foreseeable future, India is going to have a young demography. This is our talent pool. This is going to be an undisputed strength because we are still a country which has a large, young, growing, educated population, whereas others are either a stagnated young population or a declining young population or a growing young population, but as resourceful or as educated as us. So what do we have to do to make the best use of ourselves? So we need to nurture this talent through education. We have to improve research and innovation abilities of us as a nation. And we have to continue policy reforms that enhance career opportunities, including entrepreneurship. So we should feel that there are good opportunities for young talent in India and facilitate that. Second, currently we are losing talent to global markets. People are preferring to go out because, of course, those careers are more lucrative. Those markets are stronger. There are high growths. But we have to make our own domestic environment globally competitive. First, it will help us retain our own people. And then the next step will be to maybe attract talent from outside. And the third is import substitution. So generally we, by import, what comes to our mind is products like goods, phones, laptops, cars, etc., etc. But it's not just those products, it's solutions and ideas. Right now, we are importing solutions and ideas. Our life is being governed by or influenced by or inspired by solutions and ideas that are coming from outside. So instead of importing those solutions, those technologies, those ideas, we have to create solutions in India's context. This in totality is what I call a knowledge economy. So there are these classifications that we are an agrarian economy, or we are a manufacturing economy, or we are a service economy. I propose that we should think of becoming a knowledge economy. So that's the first part. Second is knowledge diplomacy. We know that the world is grappling with many challenges. There are challenges related to environment. There are challenges related to wealth and its inequalities, mental health and psychological issues, dominance of technology over the human species. But we cannot look for technical or scientific solutions for all of these problems. Many of these problems are mindset issues. For example, we cannot prevent climate change by just putting more and more solar power, unless we do something about this unending human desire to consume and consume. It's like suppressing the symptom without knowing the cause or eradicating the cause. So as a civilization and as a spirited nation, we have the opportunity to offer an alternate perspective to the world. Right? Our perspective will not be that just let's put solar power and we'll be done with our climate change problems. Our proposal will be, let's look at how can we control or restrain human desire to consume. So India has now emerged in its stature as a responsible power and a trustworthy partner, in the global arena, and it can really lead some of these efforts in fundamental thinking for problem solving. So this is what I call knowledge diplomacy, not just diplomacy for our trade and services, but diplomacy through knowledge for problem solving, not just for India, but for the world. The third part in becoming a knowledge republic is a knowledge society. So we are a civilization that has held knowledge as the highest virtue. In fact, Bhavna ji had mentioned this in her introductory remarks. The richness of our languages, our scriptures, being hosting some of the oldest, first universities of the world, and a living tradition of rishis that continues to this day. This is a testimony to our respect for knowledge as a society. The name Bharat itself means a place that relishes knowledge. And the quest in India has been the quest of knowledge. In fact, there is a story you might have heard of Alexander. When he reached the Indian border, he met a yogi. And Alexander is intrigued by seeing that yogi, and he tells him that he's there to conquer the world. And the yogi replies that he has conquered the desire to conquer the world. So that's the quest for knowledge that India has had for forever. This pursuit of truth and learning is an essential characteristic of the Indian mind, and India is a knowledge society. That character of the society has to be uncovered and leveraged in our national missions. So it's really the time to decide. The knowledge republic has these three ingredients, being a knowledge economy, knowledge diplomacy, and a knowledge society. So what should be our civilizational dream? So it is said that if we don't know where we have to go, any road will take us there. And we are, sitting in a forum by Disha Bharat. So there is a Disha that Disha Bharat is giving to us. So we have two options. Senior public leader recently, we were talking to him, and he commented that first is we continue as we are doing. What are we doing? We are continuing on the path of development laid out in front of the rest of the world. What will it achieve? It will make us a cheaper version of the West. We are already on that path. It's the easier path. We are anyway on it. The second is design our modern nation in the light of the civilization. So this really requires the hard work. But can we do the hard work? So if someone asks you 20 years later, you should not say that you're still at crossroads. It is really the time to decide. We must choose and we must move. So since independence, we have not had that kind of a national mission that provokes us to act. But I think the work is still undone. Whenever this question comes to us around the Independence Day, we are celebrating our independence, but we must reflect and realize that we are perhaps sovereign, but we are not swatantra. So what do I mean by that? We are politically free, but we don't have our own tantra. The swatantra means having our own tantra. Tantra is the techniques and systems that we use to govern not just a country, but our entire society. So that design of our own tantra has to happen and has to be applied in the day-to-day life of the Bharatiya society. I'll take a pause and to my presentation here, and whatever comments and questions we may have from the audience, I would love to take them.
Sure. Yes, I have a question for you. So today's youth understand okay, let me put it this way. Information today is available at our fingertips. There is Google Guru, right? He's their biggest guru today. Now, do you think that this information that they're getting through at their fingertips is actually knowledge? So what is the difference between knowledge and information?
Very good question, Bhavanaji. Before that, I think there is one more problem, which is, I think an even more, I mean, a higher degree of problem, which is, even if we distinguish between knowledge and information, we are feeling that because we can access information, we have information, but it's not true. Just the access to information does not mean that we become more informed. So first, we'll have to drop this thinking that we are already informed. Everyone feels that, oh no, we know it. And then comes knowing the difference between information and knowledge. So knowledge, the true sense of knowledge is that which sets us free, and it should not trap us into knowing more. Information is, facts and figures about other people, other situations, the rest of the world. I think that this distinction has to be provided as a perspective from the very young age. Through it happens in the families, but also through the schooling system, through the university system. This must be provided. Otherwise, what we are seeking is becoming more informed without necessarily becoming more knowledgeable. And let's take it one step ahead and ask for ourselves to become wiser. So what happens when we are not just more informed and more knowledgeable, but also wiser, is that the quality of our decision making improves. So ultimately, as an individual and as a society, I think we should aim to become wiser so that the quality of our decisions improves. And in Sanskrit, this is known as Vivek, our ability to distinguish between what is good for us and the society and what is not. So that Vivek has to be honed, I think, in all of us. So this discrimination definitely is very important.
Thank you so much for that, giving us that distinction between information and knowledge. One more question from one of our viewers is, you spoke about the tantra of the Swatantra. Right? The tantra, unfortunately or unfortunately, is codified in a language called Sanskrit. And we have been disconnected with our roots of Sanskrit. So how do we reconnect to that? And what are some of the steps as a society, as an economy, we should take?
I think it has been an unfortunate, direction that we chose as a country, that we didn't give the importance to Sanskrit. We feel that it is not relevant, but the foundational tantra, the operating system of our society, most of the knowledge is in that language. So translations can make it easy, but of course, my wish would be that more and more of us understand and appreciate that language. Assuming that that's not possible, or maybe that's not the necessary or sufficient condition to express our own tantra. If you look at modern technological developments, there are still domains, most of the domains in which technological developments are happening, the nature of those developments are governed by a certain worldview, that this is what is meaning of technological development, and those worldviews are not necessarily Bharatiya or Indian. For example, recently Apple created its headgear with the Vision Pro. The world is going gaga about it. That's such a great, interesting product which is coming up. But if we look at the nature of technology, the nature of devices, not just that Vision Pro, but most of the devices that we use, they are devices designed for individuals. Hypothetically, if we were to develop and conceptualize those devices in India from an Indian perspective, perhaps we would have prioritized families or groups while designing a device, not an individual. Perhaps, I don't know. But that kind of thinking has to go in. That is also what I mean by exploring our own tantra, our own techniques and systems when it comes to designing something.
All right. So we have another question here. It is about, because you have also co-founded the Rishihood University. I think you will be the right person to answer this. We have a lot of talk has been there going around with how the policy level our education has been delivered all through. In 2020, like all of us know, the national education policy was brought about. Now it is aiming at bringing the reforms in the education system. And how does something like the national education policy, which has been influenced by our Indic thoughts, how can this, when delivered right, or what are the things for it to be delivered right, which will help us decolonize our minds? Like you said, it is, we are still in the Western thinking mode. So is there a part of the national education system? Can it play a role, the policy?
Okay. Again, a very good question. So there are different parts to it. I'll pick it up part by part. So one is making students aware about the knowledge systems, which is primarily the role of the faculty members and the curriculum. So that itself is a long work to be done, because for many decades, we have really not had that kind of a faculty at that kind of a size, right? We are looking at a national education policy. We are not looking at just Delhi education policy or 2022 education policy. So when we are looking at a large size in terms of population and also in terms of timeline, we really have a long way to go in terms of making the faculty trained and aware about the knowledge system. So that will need some time, and the work is happening in that direction. Second would be making that an integrated part of the education system. Right now, mostly what is happening is we are studying, let's say we are studying engineering. So we are studying our computer science courses, we are studying coding, we are studying maths, we are studying data structures. Parallelly, we are also studying elective course or something in Indic knowledge systems. But that is kind of, this and this, the two are not talking to each other. Whereas it's a knowledge system, it's not a separate knowledge. So we'll have to find out ways of creating these disciplines in context of that knowledge system. So that's even a higher order work for which faculty training is not enough. Really, some people will have to put their mind together for a long time to think of how some of the disciplines themselves can be created in the context of the knowledge system. The third part of this issue is, can education alone do this? Because its education policy will primarily affect education system. But if you notice, students and teachers, they're spending a lot of time outside the system. Student is hardly there 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, in the school or in the university. Rest of the time, the student is interacting with, outer world through social media. The student is interacting with the peer group. The student is consuming information that is impacting the mind of the student more than what the student is listening to in the classroom. So the popular content, what we are consuming as a country, we really need to create alternate content that is in sync with this vision. Otherwise, we are kind of living two lives, right? We're trying to teach something in the class and rest of the life seems to be a little different. So bringing in this alignment in these lives is very important. So along with education policy, I'm perhaps seeing something like a culture policy, something like a youth policy. So there are some synergies between these different policies which take the Indian life in the direction that is aligned with the civilization.
Yes, indeed, a very thought-provoking answer. There is a lot of things for us to actually work on, and I think that's what you touched upon when you, in your introductory remarks, when you said about the knowledge society, if I understood it right. Now, we talk about a knowledge society where education happens not only in the four walls of the classroom but also outside, and outside is largely uncontrolled. So what is how should each individual citizen be responsible, and how should each person contribute to this knowledge society? How should we build, and where are some of the starting steps, if you can throw some light on that?
Yeah. So we really have to figure it out. I don't have answers. I only have questions. A question is, why is it that we are spending more and more time consuming such information? Why is it that we're not finding something else more attractive, like sitting with our families and just chit-chatting, going out with a group of friends? If you notice, playing outdoors, generally has reduced, unless it's like some competitive sports, preparing for some league, etc. Generally, in our childhood, we didn't have devices and we would go out and keep playing cricket for so many hours in a day. Why has that reduced, and can we create an alternate to these devices which is more interesting for a student, or not just for student, for anyone, than those devices? So that's a question for all of us. If we provide an alternate, so that's the answer. I mean, that's how we can reduce the impact. And now all of this will really multiply because of artificial intelligence, because the power of technology, the connectedness of these different technologies and its potential influence on human mind will keep uh, becoming higher and higher. So it's a very important, timely question, that how do we make our lives easier with devices while remaining kind of autonomous humans and not becoming subjugated to the technology, which is right now happening, and evidently happening quite pervasively. So I really don't have answers, but I have these questions.
Okay, sure. So from universe, the real universe, we're going to the metaverse, and we don't know what it is going to take us to next. Now, but you said we need an alternative, but there was an alternative, especially in the education sector, in the form of the Gurukula education system that was there, where there was a holistic education that was being given. And that was widespread in ancient India. So how can the new age university, like yourselves, with the name itself is Rishihood, so I'm sure you're inspired by the rishis of the Gurukula. So how can a new age university pick up some of those ideals from the Gurukula and not and actually help in developing the 21st century youth, where there is a Bharatiya value also there, but ready for the 21st century challenges also? Is it possible to actually merge them?
It is possible, and perhaps that's the only way it is doable. So because we are talking of preparing the 21st century Indian youth for solving Indian challenges and perhaps global challenges. So how does this happen? The youth has to be really prepared. So we need to understand what is the youth. Youth is a human, of course, and a human in a certain stage of life. So what does this human consist of? There is this layer of our intellectual existence. Most of the education system is dealing with that layer of intellectual existence and preparing us, feeding us with more and more information, training us for a certain profession, making us a human resource, as in we are a resource to be put into the economic machine. That is what most of the education system is doing. It's not wrong if it were just one of the things. I know it is required that we play a productive role, and most of us will have to play a productive role in the society, especially given the situation that our country is in. But that's not the only role, definitely. So what are the other things? So the aspect of our physical layer of existence, that is something that is not given its importance in the education system. Whereas if you look at in the Gurukuls, you know, physical fitness was a very natural part of the whole Gurukula life. Second is the emotional layer of our existence. So what is happening is that now, one, we don't have that Gurukul environment where teachers, students, everyone is living together, like a family, and there is a lot of emotional cushion around the student, and that also is preparing the student for emotional resilience. The other place to build it is the family system, but from joint families, we're breaking down to before joint, they were even like the whole village used to work like a family, and then of course the joint family, then now family, and even that family structure is breaking down. So there is no place for a student to gain that emotional strength and resilience. And finally, of course, the spiritual dimension of our existence. So these were very easily integrated in the Gurukul system. There was no distinction between life and learning. They were the same. We lived as we learned, and we learned by living. So that broke because of the way our colonization happened. But it is important to rebuild that. How we are trying, I'll share some methods that we are trying out at Rishihood University. So along with our program curriculum, in which we study the subjects, and the subjects are also taught in a multidisciplinary way so that people are prepared for problem solving. Along with that, we have something called the inner curriculum. So inner curriculum is about the self, which includes our fitness. So sports, for example, is a compulsory part of the curriculum at Rishihood. Then we have this emotional environment through festivals, through music, through mentors on campus. We have a full-time life and spiritual coach who lives on campus. So the responsibility of the person and of the students is to really talk to each other and come up with the inner turmoils that anyone is going through, and just talk it out. People are not finding spaces or another people whom they can just talk to. So those are some of the things that we are trying. Of course, there are other elements to it, like a residential campus where faculty and students, they live together, they eat together. So for example, we don't have a separate dining room for staff. Everyone, including me, we eat with the students, the same food, the same place, the same time. So that builds that environment. We do a lot of the campus work together in terms of planting the trees, in terms of taking care of some of the other things like the library, the farm, etc. So we're trying to build that culture and environment in the context of 21st century expectations and requirements of the students and the parents and the industry. But I think it's doable, and only when we do it, we'll really prepare the student in the as a whole. Otherwise, we'll just be preparing the intellectual and career dimension of the student.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of in your recent tweets also, you had mentioned about having a large group of friends. So that was the real life. So now why did you get that? How did you arrive at why do you see that as almost a pandemic kind of a situation, the small friend circle? What is that? What is that happening there?
Yeah. So, what is happening is somehow as humans, although we are extremely well connected, right? You are sitting somewhere, I'm sitting somewhere, and we are able to talk to each other. That connection is not leading to a feeling that we have relations. In the age of hyperconnectivity, we are becoming more and more lonely. This is a paradox, but this is happening. I'm observing this when I talk to people. Perhaps this is an observation of many of the people. It's not easy to measure. Perhaps we've not started putting instruments on our brain and started measuring our levels of loneliness. Perhaps it's not even possible to measure it like that. But this is a sense that I get when I talk to people. So why I was asking this question to the students, why I ask this when I take interviews, is just to find out what kind of life they live, what is the kind of circle they have, how they spend their time, basically what are the ideas the student is consuming. It depends on the kind of friend circle the student has. So if a friend circle is very active in sports, in some cultural activities, then of course that develops a different personality of the student. If the friend circle is having some addiction, then of course that impacts that the person who is in that friend circle. So it is said that we become an average of the 5 people closest to us. So having
At least 5.
an interesting, having a right friend circle is very important. Now the concern that I developed while talking to the next generation is that there is almost no friend circle. So there is a lack of just that connection of being available. We were speaking with one student in a program, and the student said that I really like this platform because I can talk to someone. We're not having that availability to talk to someone. And now that there is a concept of human libraries where we have to borrow a human to talk to. So this indicates the level of atomization and loneliness that has that we have reached. I think this is so pervasive that it is like a pandemic. I mean, mental health is a pandemic.
It indeed is alarming, the way things are going. And what happens next is the question. The students who are, the people who are students today, now in a few years, they get jobs or they have to be entrepreneurs. And in your opening remarks, you also spoke about the knowledge economy. How do you think the knowledge economy should shape up, considering the youth of today? What should they enable themselves with to set up the kind of knowledge economy that you were talking about?
Great. So right now what is happening is a lot of these issues of emotional turmoil are a result of one, not being prepared at the education through the educational institutions or at the family. Also, there is a undue pressure through the general competitiveness that has come up in the modern world, including peer pressure. So friends, social media, parents, teachers, everyone is nudging the student in a certain kind of competitive direction, that you have to achieve this in order to become better than others and succeed in life. The worst outcome of this whole competitiveness is the way we are seeing increasing suicide rates among the students. And we were discussing with some of the friends the other day. It's really alarming, and we have to arrest this. So what are my suggestions into this whole thing is, first, we have to make good quality education accessible to a larger number of people, because right now there is a very high entry barrier to a good education. So now, because I went to IIT, I know the kind of stress people go through, just preparing for it. 10,000 seats, 10 lakh aspirants. I mean, it's just disproportionate. We can't continue to sustain like this. The other thing is, why should there be a need of going through a certain type of education in order to succeed? In fact, if we look at many of the people around us, they necessarily didn't go through a great education, right? They did what they enjoyed. They picked up skills that they were good at, and they became the best version of themselves. That's how we can succeed in this kind of and create this kind of a knowledge economy. So our way of the Indian way of imagining an economy is not that we have to become the managing director of a large company. Our way of running the economy is highly kind of a decentralized and something that is very natural to the individual who is participating in that economy. It has to really relate to our own swabhav and swadharma, as people say it. So if that is not happening, we will automatically have peer pressure, because we are not meant for it. Someone else is doing it, and we are getting into that pressure. So how do we remove that? We really have to highlight examples, show stories. We have to create hero stories of people who are very happy in life without necessarily cracking a competitive exam and then going to the next competitive exam and then getting to the Silicon Valley and then getting a $1 million salary and then, having all those things in life. So really that ladder of aspirations, we have to question it and show alternate, living examples of happy people.
Wonderful. So, the way you have summarized it actually leads me to my next question. So you have seen the best of all the worlds. You have been an entrepreneur. You have been to the best of the colleges, and now you have also imbibed the Indic thoughts, and you are leading one of the universities where Indic thoughts are promoted. So who is your role model? Who is your happy person who has inspired you, and why is it?
Yeah. So there are, of course, people who are close to me, and so my mentors in college, they played the most significant role in closely guiding and shaping me. But if I have to tell the civilizational role model, it's Swami Vivekananda for me. And in fact, it is his lectures from which we picked up the name Rishihood. He says that the goal of human life is to achieve that stage of becoming a rishi. So just like childhood, motherhood, Rishihood, becoming a rishi. So yeah, he constantly keeps inspiring.
Okay. I think he's an inspiration to many people, all of us, in fact. Now, when we talk about the economy and how entrepreneurship is forming a big part of economy, be it Make in India or Startup India or anything like that, there are two things that I want perhaps your suggestions on. One, you said, like how we've seen in our surroundings, and a maturity or a degree of a gold medal perhaps does not guarantee good career. However, being street smart does more times than not. Then there's also the pressure of globalized thinking, which helps us succeed as an economy. How do we break these barriers? What does one do to address these issues, or multiple issues, which a Bharatiya will succeed with the Bharatiya thoughts in Bharat to make Bharat better?
Again, an important question you asked in two parts. First, I think it's important to gain civilizational confidence to implement many of these ideas. That confidence, I feel, also is intertwined with our economic progress. Till the time we are economically weak as a nation, it's very difficult to inspire that civilizational confidence. We see the kind of confidence that is there in Chinese people now, right? It is not independent of their economic success. If they were not so economically successful, they would not have had this kind of a civilizational confidence of giving an alternate vision to the world. And the other part of your question was, how do we, what did you ask? The first part.
So, a success in education does not really guarantee success in.
Correct. Yeah. So we don't have to be, an engineer, or we don't have to be street smart. I think we just have to be ourselves. The most successful people have just been themselves. Of course, they shaped themselves, but they didn't shape themselves in the image of others. No, they shaped themselves as per their swabhav and swadharma. The Japanese way of looking at it is called ikigai, right? Finding the reason why we exist. So I think most successful people, and by successful, I don't mean most, I don't mean the wealthiest people, right? The wealthiest people may be doing something else, but if I have to define success by being people who have high levels of satisfaction and joy, I think those are the people who remained themselves in their whole evolution.
Okay. Now, in this a couple of more questions. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'm available.
Yeah. So now that we are talking about the swabhav and swadharma of youth, what is the right time to shape, and what is the role of the parents and the society, and of course the teachers? Because, like you said, it takes a young person spends about 8 hours in the university or in the school. The rest of it is in the family or outside in the society. So what is the role of the society and the parents?
Okay, this is like a trick question you're asking to a person who is working at a university. But I think I think it starts definitely from birth, but by some logic, maybe even pre-birth. Whatever goes in shaping us, it includes thoughts, it includes nourishment and food, it includes the environment we receive in the family. So parents, they play a big role. So therefore, the breaking down of the family system is one of the most important concerns that I see in shaping the future, because the whole system that nurtured and prepared a young birth into a flourishing adult, that system is breaking down. Then comes the education. So I don't know how much right now the education system is able to contribute to that holistic nourishment. Definitely, there are bright spots in the education system where some schools are trying to do it. There are many very inspired teachers who deeply care for their students, but a lot of us are going through an industry kind of a system where there is a floor shop, and we're just going through that whole assembly line. It is not adding much into our lives. The space outside the education system, where we are spending easily 7-8 hours in a day, including our family, friends, cousins, neighbors, etc. That I think can play a more meaningful role if we look at how we can nurture hyper local communities, for which we have to create a very interesting alternate to being stuck on a device inside our room. We know for a fact that most of the students who have this access to a mobile technology, they want to spend time on gaming. So this is a question that, can we create something more interesting than a mobile game? If we are able to do that, then we will be having opportunities for people to talk, mingle together, learn something, enhance their social connections, enhance their emotional abilities, develop some of their physical strengths. All that is currently being substituted with getting some tokens on the game. So if we can look at this in a more total kind of a fashion, I think we'll be able to come up with solutions. But definitely the concern is with food and nourishment. Definitely the concern is with how the parents are spending their time, what kind of family atmosphere is available. The concern is what is being taught at the schools and colleges, and how much care are the teachers being able to provide to the students and the general community. How strong are those connections, and how resilient are we as hyper local communities?
Okay. So again, a holistic view of how to nurture a child.
Yeah, that I think has been the Indian view on all things. We don't look at parts individually, and the sum of parts, the whole is greater than the sum of parts. That has been our thinking, and that is the way of problem solving in the Indian context.
Wonderful. So I think I have so many more questions, but I will probably keep it to the last two here. Now, we've spoken multiple times on Swabhava and Swadharma. Although a lot of us in our own languages have the same understanding of Swabhava, Dharma is still a very confusing word for many. So if you can throw a little bit light of what you mean by Swadharma.
The way my spiritual mentor explained it to me, I'll just narrate that. So I'm a seeker. I don't still know what's the true download of dharma. But the way I have been explained to is that there is a certain operating principle of the world. Aligning our own existence with that operating principle. So if we want to align our own life in the operating principle of the existence, there are certain rules and disciplines that we have to apply to ourselves. So that set of rules and discipline is my Swadharma. So as a student, I have the dharma of the student. As a son, I have the dharma of the son. As a parent, I have that. So whatever is to be achieved in terms of aligning my existence with the larger existence, it has to be achieved through a certain set of rules and disciplines. Otherwise, it is not possible. So like right now, there is a world which is going woke and liberal, break free from everything. That is kind of antithetical to the idea of Swadharma, because Swadharma, the principle of Swadharma believes that through discipline we become free, not by the lack of it. So that is my understanding of Swadharma.
Fantastic. Through discipline, we become free and not by the lack of it. I think I'll remember that for a very long time now. No, it comes. I want to close this conversation by this last question. Now, we have been talking for the last 50 minutes about knowledge republic, and the republic itself is a Western thought. Plato has himself authored the book Republic, whereas we have called ourselves Rashtra. And Rashtra, we understand Bharat as a Rashtra, which is one, but the concept of a nation or a republic has to have a unified set of practices and culture and all of that. So where is Bharat in terms of a republic or a Rashtra?
Yeah, so that's a nuance. I think that that's a correct question or a nuance to have. But for the sake of this discussion, I don't think it makes much of a difference in terms of what should be our civilizational dream. So the proposal here is that we should aspire to become a civilization that not just respects knowledge but demonstrates it is a testimony to the rest of the world that this is a nation that is based on knowledge. So we can call it a republic, we can call it a democracy, we can call it whatever we want, but Indian nation, whatever remains of it, has to demonstrate it. It cannot just be an endowment of the past, that we have received it from the past and we were a great civilization. That is not sufficient. We have to demonstrate that we can be great again.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much for all your very inspiring answers, very thought-provoking discussion. Any final remarks that you want to make? I would a couple of minutes.
I think this is a great time for a person, if there are students and teachers watching this, a great time for people who are learning and who are teaching to be in India, but going through some very exciting times. It is a chance that we have got after many generations that we are in a situation where we don't have to worry about our existential issues. So if you look at the generations before us, 100 years before us, there was 100 years, and till many years before that, maybe 1,000 years, continuous invasions, and our society was totally occupied in just preventing the civilization from a collapse. Then there was an independence movement, and now we are sovereign, as I said. Then there were 2-3 generations which devoted their whole life to just create something where we don't have an existential crisis in terms of availability of wealth, food, shelter, all those things. So the times that we are now in are the most comfortable times in the last maybe 1,000 years. And if we don't make a good use of this opportunity, we may not feel good about ourselves on our deathbed. So that's my message to people who are, especially the youth. We must make a good use of this opportunity. These times may not come again.
Thank you so much, Shri Sahil Agarwal ji. It was a pleasure talking to you and interacting with you. A lot of learning for all of us, certainly. if I have to sum up the entire discussion, it was the Swabhav, the Swadharma, and the Swatantra, which would give us the three swars that would lead us to what we have to aspire to become the knowledge republic. So we have a lot of work cut out for ourselves, and I think we should all equip ourselves with the right kind of, the right mindset. The mindset has to change, like you said, so that we can very peacefully move to because the vidya leads to the sukha at the end. So with that sukha, if we can aspire to have a peaceful internal self and the external surrounding, I think that would be the harmonious society that we are all aspiring to be living in. Thank you so much for this very enlightening discussion. It was a pleasure talking to you. Now, moving on, I think we will share this. What is next in our journey in this My Bharat online campaign is tomorrow we have another very interesting talk by none other than Shri Vivek Ranjan Agnihotri. We have been seeing cinema for a long time now, for all our lives, and we now have understood what is Indic cinema. So My Bharat, nationalism and Indic cinema, please do not miss this. The talk is being given by Shri Vivek Ranjan Agnihotri. I hope to see you all in more numbers for this talk tomorrow. That is tomorrow at 7 p.m. And as always, our student activity continues. Morning 7 a.m. A lot of our young, exciting students come up with very different topics, and they deliver speeches, they have worked very hard to prepare on Indic subjects. We have given them an opportunity to talk about and think about Bharat, and that is going to be on display at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Please do not miss. Come and encourage all the young students in big numbers. The next one is definitely our state level essay competition, Rajya Mattada Prabandha Spardhe. My humble request for you all to reach out to all colleges that you know and make more and more students participate in this essay competition. Let them get them thinking. Bharat in Amritkal, role of youth. So that is our essay competition. The last date for submitting is August 25th. Encourage more and more people to write. It could be in English or Kannada. Eligibility is for college students. Let them write, and we wish all of them a very best of luck. Yes, and as usual, we are not at one place. We carry this message of My Bharat for now throughout Karnataka. Today, it has been in Shivamogga and Sagar, and the fervor of Bharat is being spread to the nooks and corners of Karnataka. Encourage this in wherever you are. This Ratha or Swarajya Ratha is going to come near your hometowns, and wherever you are, welcome it, be with it, do a Bharat Mata Ki Jai with our Swarajya Ratha and enjoy this favor of Swatantra in this this season of Independence Day. We are inching towards our Independence Day, and let us have that patriotism, exhibit that patriotism along with our Swarajya Ratha. With this, we conclude today's evening lecture series. It was wonderful interacting with you, Shri Sahil Agarwal ji. Thank you everyone for joining us on this live, and namaskar.